Although we try not to repeat ourselves when writing code, there are some times where you end up repeating yourself a little bit, and code snippets can help out with that. Let's smash on that. Hi everybody, and welcome to another episode of the Asp.Net Monsters. In today's episode, we are going to take a look at code snippets in Visual Studio Code. So I ran into this maybe a couple of weeks ago where I had a very large number of SQL files that needed updating. And on this particular project, we needed to put in the person's name and the date and what change they made at the top of every file. I know, source control, preaching to the choir. But I needed to put this in across basically about 1,000 files, and the formats of the stuff at the top of the file was a little bit different from file to file, so I couldn't really just script it out. So I needed to go into each file and run it myself. So I found that I could write code snippets to do it for me. And this is something that is available inside of Visual Studio Code. You've probably used it, perhaps without even realizing that you're using it, because a lot of the extensions that install in Visual Studio Code provide this functionality, and there might even be some that comes out of the box, but you can write your own code snippets for specific problems. So
That's great.
I have conveniently brought up here our source code for our blog, which is basically just a bunch of markdown files. So we've got loads of files, one for every episode that we've ever recorded. So I want to create a new one here, and I will just name it 2021-1-25. You know what day we're recording this on. And we'll just put in some title.md. All right, so this is a markdown file, and the beginning of every one of our markdown files kind of begins the same way. So we have like some dashes and a layout and title and author ID, and this is pretty much the same across every post with just some minor variants for what the actual title is and what the layout is. So I would really like a way to not have to type that out every time. So I can use a code snippet for that. There are a couple of different options for creating code snippets. You can create global code snippets. So if this is something that's going to be used across every one of your projects, so I might have a snippet like when I write sim, it replaces it with my name. But in this case, we just want this one to be scoped to this particular project. I don't want this being available in other projects. So you can do that. You can scope your code snippets to within this project. So I am going to hit Control-Shift-P and open up this command palette, and I'm going to go down to Preferences, Configure User Snippets, and I am going to add a new snippet file for website, that being this folder here, and I'll just call it. The name isn't important. What's important is that it has the extension .code snippets. So if you needed to have a bunch of different code snippets in here for different things, you could go ahead and do that. And so let's start with just a really basic code snippet here. So the first thing that you do is, this is all defined just in JSON. So you're just going to start off by naming your code snippet, and we'll just call ours sample. And then within this, you can provide a bunch of different options here. So the first one that I like to provide is scope. So this is the language to which this snippet is applicable. In our case, it's going to be Markdown, but you could pass in a bunch of different things here. So this is a comma delimited field. So if we can use this on Markdown and mark up, that's a language, I'm sure. Then you could provide it just kind of a comma delimited list in here. And that ties back into kind of this little thing down here, where you can see this file is JSON with comments, but you can set the file type to any one of these hundreds of file types. The next thing is to provide the prefix, and that is what you want to type to get this thing to show up. So we'll just do SNP. Actually, let's do that one that I was talking about. We'll do the Simon one. So that gives you what you're going to type to expand into that. And then body, which can take just a simple string, but it can also take an array if you have a multi-line template, and then just a description. Okay, so now I have that. I can go back to that markdown file that I added here, and I can type sim, and I hit control space there, and that was enough to expand it out. So just like that. And you can see like when I'm expanding it, the stuff that we get. But we want to put in a little bit more. Yeah, so let's try and do this snippet that we came up with earlier for setting up the title on the page. Now I conveniently went and wrote it earlier, so I can paste it in here. And so you can see that I'm using basically the same stuff that I was doing before. It's scoped to markdown. The prefix is going to be head. The description is this, and then my body is a little bit more involved in this one here. So I have a title, the categories, the tags, and all of these little spaces here. And in fact, I think I'm missing at the top here and a couple of dashes to start the block in markdown. So that's what this is going to expand into. And we have the date on every one of our files here. So I'm able to use these kind of replacement variables here for current year, current month, current date, current hour, current minute. And that's going to expand out to being the date. So there's a bunch of these that you can put in. So you can replace stuff that you already have. So you could like put the contents of the current line in. You could put the contents of the selected text in. There's all these date ones here. You can do things like block comment start. So if you have a template which is applicable across a bunch of different languages, then you can just use a variable, and Visual Studio Code will know what the block comment characters are for that. But let's give this one a try here. So I have a thing called head. So if we go back over to here, let's type head, and then control space. It suggests this one. I hit enter, and away we go. So it is put in today's date and today's time, and then I can just kind of jump back up and fill in my various categories that I want to do. And that's pretty much it for a snippet.
That's cool.
Like there's global ones too. I don't know.
So this is just a file we can check into the repo, right? And share with everyone.
Yeah, so you can just keep it to yourself, or you can have a global one for everybody on your project. Any of those things. There is a little bit more stuff you can do with it too. So I think you can provide some arguments to it. But this is sufficient for my needs and was very helpful and saved me a lot of typing a couple of weeks ago.
That's great. If we're going to repeat ourselves, let's at least do it efficiently.
Yeah, because you know what they say, if we're going to repeat ourselves, we should at least do it efficiently. So thanks everybody for joining us on today's episode. Remember to like, comment, and share, and we will see everybody next week.
Bye.